Greetings, friends! This year, I plan to grow more food than we have ever grown before. And I really think that we can make it happen. Just right now, we have so many different things growing that in years past, we just haven't. Like strawberries. There's strawberries, green little strawberries growing right now in the greenhouse. And I expect them to be ready not too long from now. Also, we're producing eggs. We're starting to develop a really good layer system for our chickens, and even right now we're producing more eggs than we ever had before. And right now my mother-in-law and Sailor are inside washing eggs and getting them ready for us to eat, as well as for some of our customers. This year we're a little behind on the greens. Typically we already have a number of different variety of greens planted out in the main garden, but we don't quite have them yet just because of the number of things that we've had to deal with the weather and the rain. So we're trying to get caught up on that, as well as with our root crops. So today we're going to be transplanting some lettuce, as well as growing things like radishes, putting the seeds in the ground, and things like beets. So I'm going to gather these up and let's go out and get them planted. So before we get started with sowing our seed, first we're going to measure off our beds just to make sure that our row is where we want our row to be. So each of the rows that we do in our garden are 30 inches wide. So here we got our landscape fabric here, and we're going to go 30 inches from that, because that's the walkway, to another 30 inches, which is, as you can see, right there. Then we're going to take our row markers here, just posts that I've made from chicken fencing and masonry string. All right, in this row right here, we're gonna be doing beets. If we're making our furrows in our bed, to actually make our rows that our beets we're planting in, I like to use this wheel hoe here. It's actually an old one. I have no idea how old it is, but it works great. Next, we're going to be planting our seeds, and my wife Lacie here is actually going to be sowing these seeds, and she has selected a variety of beets to grow, and they're all close to the same date of maturity, but they have different colors, which will really make a neat multicolored bunch when we harvest them. And we typically use the earthway seeder for seeding things like radishes. And what else do you use it for?
Well, any small seeds I use it for, mostly radishes.
But for beets, she really likes to do them by hand. Seeding isn't my favorite task to do here, nor that I think that I'm the best at. I think she's far better at it.
He doesn't have the patience for it.
I like to do things like arugula, where I can just really sow bountifully and just kind of just go with it. But
well, the reason I like to hand seed them, is especially beets, is because every seeder that I've used doesn't space them correctly, and then we get big spots where there are no seeds, and you don't know until they've germinated, and that's like 2 to 3 weeks before they germinate. So I would rather go ahead and plant them by hand, just to know and make sure that we have seed in the ground.
And as she's sowing those beet seeds, I'm going to be adding a little bit of compost to a lower end of our bed where we're going to be planting or transplanting lettuce. So I decided to add some fertilizer to a couple of these beds. But one of the things that I have been noticing over the years that we have been developing our different systems with our chickens and our ducks and our compost systems and recycling some of those materials within our garden, I noticed that each year the soil quality gets better and better. So looking forward to having to add less of commercial fertilizer. Even though it's organic, I really love just using and managing the resources around me. And in relation to that, next year we are planning to keep a land Sabbath. It'll be our 7th year gardening here on this homestead. And with this being our 6th year here gardening, I expect this year to be the best ever. Because there's a promise in keeping the land Sabbath that in the 6th year, you will be blessed abundantly in your fields and in your produce. And I believe it says, even so, it will be yield 3 years worth of produce. So yes, we got to put the work in, but we fully intend to keep that land Sabbath and reap the benefits this year and then the year after that. All right, so y'all done sowing your beet seeds and covering them up?
I'm done with this bed.
There we go. So next, if you could go ahead and bust out the earthway seeder and go ahead and put some radishes in this bed right here that I added some fertilizer and some compost for me. That would be fantastic.
I can do it.
That would be rad with the radishes.
He's weird.
I hope you got some grounding going on there.
Yes, I don't like to wear shoes anyway, so it works for me.
I actually really enjoy wearing shoes, but there's so many benefits to grounding. I'm gonna go ahead and take my shoes off too and ground. And there's this really neat movie that we saw, it's for free on YouTube, about grounding. So we're gonna leave that link for that movie in the show notes below. So feel free to check it out, you're gonna learn a lot.
Okay, we got the radish plate in there. Here we go. I like the earthway because it's really light, it's really easy to use. I'll give you one tip that actually one of y'all gave me a couple years ago. Is whenever you're using this seeder, you have to tilt it to the right just a little bit to make sure that the seeds get picked up by the seed plate as it goes by, or else sometimes it'll miss the seeds. But other than that, I really like it. And with the earthway, you don't have to go ahead and make a furrow because it does it for you as you're pushing it along. So that makes it easier too.
Well, I just mentioned the land Sabbath. Have any of you guys ever kept the land Sabbath? If so, let me know in the comments section below. Where you just let your fields rest for 1 year. Well, getting some more compost, and actually right now we have to purchase some of our compost, organic compost, from a local company, but we're gradually having to purchase less of that too, because I have a system that we're continuing to build on where the chickens help us to make compost. So we add leaf compost to it, leaves, grass clippings, other just debris from around the farm, as well as food scraps that we have from the kitchen. And the chickens scratch through that, get some of their feed from and nutrients that they need from it, and at the same time fertilize it with their manure, with their chicken feathers, and just other stuff. So we're continuing to make progress, but little by little we're getting to where we have to purchase less off the homestead, and we're producing more and more. Whenever I'm doing tasks like this on the homestead, I like to work each side of my body equally. So that way one side's not getting stronger than the other, thus creating an imbalance in your body, which can also lead to injury. So whenever you're shoveling, raking, it's good to use both sides of your body. So do one side, I don't know, for a certain amount. Sometimes I do 10, sometimes I do 20, it all depends. Then I'll switch to the other. Or sometimes I'll even fill up one bucket with one side and then switch to the other side and fill up the other bucket. Alrighty, so we sowed 2 beds of root crops, beets and radishes. For our next 2 rows here in this section of the garden, we're going to do greens. This bed here that I just did, added the compost to, we're going to be sowing arugula. So I'm going to be doing this one since I like to sow with a heavy hand. And we're going to be using the wheel hoe again to make our furrows, and then I'm just going to sow it by hand. After that, we're going to do lettuce. So we got 3 rows there. Probably could have gotten 4, which I have done in the past. Next, we're gonna add the seed. All right, and for sowing our arugula, I just basically be really generous and spreading out the seed. A little windy today. A little bit lower. And arugula is a really easy crop to grow. And one of the reasons I really like to grow it, in addition to it being easy, is it's a good complement to any salad mix. So if you're growing your lettuce and then you put some fresh arugula in there, it really helps have a really nice balanced flavor to the salad. Go. And then for our last row that we have here, for our lettuce transplants, we're going to be doing it different than each of those 2 rows that we just did. We're going to be using landscape fabric to put down first. We brought out the landscape fabric for our lettuce, and since lettuce is a longer term crop that we have in the garden, we use the landscape fabric to suppress the weeds from growing up around your lettuce. So that way we can have an easy clean cut when we harvest it. And after that, I set up my irrigation. However, after turning it on, I realized that I had a burst in my irrigation line. And I ended up having to water each bed by hand. Well, a number of hours have passed since we first started working out here in the garden. And to help with the germination of the seeds, we covered up each row with tarps. And this not only helps with germination for our seeds, it also saves me from having to water multiple times a day because it helps keep the moisture in. We usually like to transplant our lettuce usually early in the morning and then cover it with shade cloth or later in the day. That just helps the plants handle the stress of being transplanted. So right now, Lacie and the kids are right here behind me getting started on transplanting our lettuce here, and it's so exciting. It's so empowering. It feels really good to grow food. So not only are we growing lettuce, we'll be growing root crops like radishes and beets like we sold earlier, and as well as cucumbers and tomatoes and a plethora of other things. Not to mention, we're increasing our production of meat here on the homestead. All of that it feels so good to know that we're producing food for ourselves, for our family, and for other people. That is just so exciting. It's so neat, and it's something that I think everyone should have some part in. And I'm a big believer in growing food, and I think everyone should have that basic right to do that. It should never be illegal to grow your own food. Never. If you agree, let me know in the comment section below. You ready to make some holes with your battery powered dibbler there?
Yep.
All right, let's make one right there. There we go. All right, that's enough. All right, now you got the hole there, we'll just go ahead and put that one in just like that. And then bang, bang, bang. And I've also had the question asked, Mike, what is the right size to transplant lettuce plants? And let me show you right here, because this one is just like right at perfect. Not too big. This is about the right size that you want to have it. And then this one actually here might be a tad big, but these right here are absolutely perfect. And one of the reasons why you want to transplant them at the right size is because the older they get, the more stress it is on the plant to be transplanted. Well, we got some work to do. We got this whole row, this 50-foot row to transplant these lettuce plants in. But that's it for now, because I gotta get to work. But I do want to mention that check out the show notes below. I will include information on there that may help you with your study on the land Sabbath, as well as you can check out, as I mentioned earlier, the movie about grounding. See you next time. Hold up, I forgot to mention, I want to invite you to join me, Jeff Lawton, Mark Shepard, Ben Falk, and a number of others for a free online event. The theme of the event is building your permaculture property. And you can join me. This event is absolutely free. It'll be April 23rd and April 24th. And I have the privilege of speaking on Friday, April 23rd. So make sure you sign up for this free event. The link is in the show notes below. See you next time.